Well, okay, that's a way to start the podcast, I suppose. Yeah, what's that waveform look like?
Oh, it looks the worst.
I bet.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome back to My Thing, Your Thing with Donovan.
And Hannah.
And today, this is one of my big things. This is like a big thing for me.
Yeah, if you ask me, hey, what's the thing that Donovan liked, this probably would be the first thing that I would name, aside from, like, obscure, sad 90s rock.
Yeah, basically obscure, sad 90s rock, Italian food, and Godzilla. That's like the three things.
Yep.
And this is Godzilla.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, we're talking about Italian food.
We're going to talk about Stromboli today. No. We're talking about Godzilla.
Godzilla.
Hannah,
Yeah?
have you watched any Godzilla?
I've seen, I think, half of 1990 whatever Godzilla.
The Matthew Broderick
The
one?
Matthew Broderick one, yeah.
Okay, yeah. And that's it? That's all?
No, well, I've seen some of the newer ones, but, like, specifically the, like, Godzilla versus King Kong, like, whatever specific universe that one is.
Yeah, the legendary Monsterverse.
Oh,
yeah.
and I saw the Aaron Taylor Johnson one, the one with also Bryan Cranston, that I got really mad about because they fridged Bryan Cranston's wife just for him to die literally 5 movie time minute later.
Spoiler.
Meh.
It's fine. We're not going to be talking about any of those.
No. The answer is no, I've not seen any of the Japanese ones.
Fair enough. Okay. We are going to be doing another series. We're still watching James Bond. This is kind of something we're going to do alongside of that, and then after, when we're done with the James Bond, just to kind of keep a series running. We're going to watch many of the Godzilla films. We're not going to watch all of them.
There's so many Godzilla movies.
Hannah, you want to guess how many live-action Godzilla movies there have been?
I can't give you a number, but I can tell you that when I was searching to see, like, where to stream the first Godzilla movie, I had to specify Godzilla, the first one, and then also, like, scrolled through a bunch of different Godzilla movies. There are so many Godzilla movies that, like, Google didn't even list all of them because I couldn't get to the first one, and I had to specify the first one. I'm going to say 20 plus.
Ooh, yeah. Yes, Hannah, it is 20 plus. In fact, it's 30 plus.
Jeez, and Christmas.
Yeah, so according to Wikipedia, if you go to the page for Godzilla, how many, films there are, it says 38. Now, here's my problem with that number.
Christmas.
Yeah. There's a couple of problems with that number. The first problem is that those aren't all live action. There's a couple of like Netflix movie, like anime Netflix movies that count as part of that. But it doesn't count the like American recuts of Godzilla. So
I thought you were going to say that they're padding it out by counting some movies twice because they're also the American recuts. No, they didn't even they count the American recuts?
No, they did not count any of those. And some of those are so different that I would argue they are a different film.
That's insane.
To a certain extent. We'll get to it here in a minute, specifically with this first one, but I don't want to nail down a specific number because I don't want to be held to anything. Mm-hmm. We're going to watch about half. Maybe slightly more, maybe slightly less. It kind of depends on if we can stream it and find it and which ones. Yeah.
What's actually available to us.
Yeah, I don't want to pin down an exact number. I want to watch the ones that I think are the best. I want to watch the ones that I think are, like, the absolute worst. And I want to watch kind of some of the essential ones. Mm-hmm. A lot of the middling ones we're probably just going to skip. Not necessarily because they're bad or, they are bad. That's a weird thing about Godzilla is that aside from maybe, like, a small handful, they're all bad. Like, that's kind of the great thing about Godzilla movies is that they're kind of trash.
Yeah.
And if you just accept they're trash, you can really enjoy them. Mm-hmm. And you can kind of find the really good things, like, inside of them.
Sure.
But you have to kind of accept that they're trash. And some of them are, like, Mystery Science Theater 3000 fodder. Literally, they did 2 of them on Mystery Science Theater 3000.
What's the turtle thing?
That's Gamera.
Gamera,
We will talk about Gamera.
Yeah.
We won't watch any Gamera movies, although I do really like Gamera, too. Gamera versus Godzilla is a very fun... It's not a movie. They never made that. It's a very fun argument.
Yeah. Who would win, Gamera versus Godzilla?
Yeah. One other thing too, and we'll get to it when we actually get to those films. Frequently throughout the Godzilla canon, they make like 2 of the exact same films in a row because they make one that's like a direct sequel of the last one, and so they just reuse the suit. It's the same monster and it's basically the same plot. We're only going to do one of those for every time they do that. We're going to watch one of Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster and Invasion of the Astro Monster. We're not going to watch both. We're not going to watch Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla and The Terror of Mechagodzilla. We're going to watch one or the other.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm also going to kind of give some preference to, like, films that are at the start or the end of, like, the eras. So a little bit of a spoiler. We're going to watch Terror of Mechagodzilla because it's the last of the, like, original run of Godzilla films.
Sure.
Not Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. Sorry if that's one of your favorites. I know a lot of people really like that one. I had to make some choices here. That's fun. We're going to have a good time with these.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
I love Godzilla as a concept.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty cool. I've, for the most part, enjoyed the Godzilla movies that I have seen, and I've actually been saving watching any of the Japanese ones to watch them with you because I know that Godzilla is one of your favorite guys.
Yeah, he is one of my favorite guys. I will briefly describe my personal, like, the reason why I love Godzilla.
Sure.
So imagine 5-6-year-old Donovan. He is a big dinosaur fan. He loves Jurassic Park. He loves, like, I watched Jurassic Park as a 5-6-year-old. I saw those guys get, like, torn apart by raptors, and I was like, what, dinosaurs? Hell yeah. Loved that shit. I lived in New Jersey, right near New York City. And so when the 1998 TriStar Godzilla movie was about to come out, they did an absolute media blitz, the likes of which we'll never see again.
Yeah. Didn't they have, like, a giant thing on, like, a building?
Yes, there was a giant poster on a building that looked as though a hole had been torn straight through the building.
Yeah.
And it just had, like, the date the movie was coming out and Godzilla. The hype was I couldn't sleep at night. And not because I was scared, but because, like, Godzilla was coming out at some point. And I didn't even know anything about Godzilla. I just was a dinosaur fan, and Godzilla was a giant dinosaur monster.
Yeah.
And I just loved it. And when I was 5 or 6 or whatever, when the movie came out, it was my favorite movie ever. I don't feel that way anymore. And when we get to that point in the history, we're not going to watch it, but we are going to talk about it. And I'll kind of explain some of my thoughts about it. But that just kind of made me fall in love with it. And then a couple of years later, when Godzilla 2000, which was the first Japanese movie they made after that first American one came out, I went to the theaters and saw it. And then I was kind of like, this is different. And that was sort of what drew me down the sort of road of, like, oh, there's American Godzilla and there's Japanese Godzilla, and then there's all these different kind of things. And yeah.
Listener, you must know he is currently wearing a Godzilla shirt.
I am wearing a Godzilla t-shirt. Yes, I am. I was wearing one last night, too.
Yeah.
A different
one.
Okay. So it's going to be a little bit of a downer here coming up in a second.
Oh, no.
Yeah. There is specifically a part that is going to be very trigger warning. I'll put it in the tags, but I'm also going to call it out. There's a great quote that I want to share. Monsters are tragic beings. They're not evil by choice. That is their tragedy. That was said by Ishiro Honda, the man who is probably most responsible, more than maybe anybody, for Godzilla. He was born in 1911 in a small village called Asahi, which is now part of the modern city of Suroka. I apologize. I'm going to do my best to pronounce the Japanese stuff. I looked it up, but I'm not a Japanese speaker, so I'm going to have a little bit of trouble. His father and grandfather were both Buddhist monks, and he grew up farming on the temple's land. Like, he was a farmer on the temple land there. He became interested in film when he was, like, a young man, watching silent films. I learned a really cool thing about silent film in Japan while doing research here. They used to have a thing called benshi. Instead of in America, how you would have, like, somebody playing live music, in Japan, you would literally have somebody standing up in front while the film was going on, and he would, like, sort of interpret and, like, give you sort of what was happening, because nobody could read the text. They couldn't read the English. So there would just be a person in the theater who would sort of be telling you what is happening, and they would, the best ones would be kind of theatrical, and they would kind of, like, it was almost like a chorus kind of thing, You'd be explaining to the audience in a sort of a theater way. Apparently it's, like, still an art form that they still sometimes do, and it sounds really cool.
It does sound pretty cool, yeah.
Kind of fascinating. Ishiro Honda, as a child, he would just sneak in and watch these without permission, and he actually got in quite a bit of trouble. Later on, Ishiro Honda would go to Nihon University in 1931 to study film. And while there, he met an executive for a company called Photographic Chemical Laboratories, or PCL. He was offered a job there, and he would finish his studies while working as a director's assistant and an editor. He did this until 1935, when he was drafted into the Imperial Japanese Army.
Yeah.
Honda would briefly serve under a lieutenant named Kurohawa Yasuhide, whom a year later, in 1936, would participate in a coup. I won't get too into this, like the politics and all that kind of stuff, but this is known as the February 26th incident, where basically a number of Imperial Japanese Army officers would attempt at killing their opponents in the government, and in some cases they succeeded in killing that.
Yikes.
Yeah, it was a coup. They really did try to take over the government.
Yeah.
Honda had absolutely nothing to do with it, but because his regiment had served under one of the guys who did have something to do with it, basically his whole regiment was sort of considered like...
Traitor?
Not even traitor, but just like untrustworthy.
Sure.
It's like, we can't trust them to do anything. So they actually got sent home, and that actually prevented Honda from being able to finish his army service at the time. Yes. We'll get back to this. He would go back to working at PCL for a while, working on movies as a director's assistant. And then in 1940, when World War II was really kicking off, he would be sent to China to serve out the remainder. Hi, dear listeners. This is Donovan recording later on. If you don't want to listen to a conversation about war crimes and human trafficking, please skip to 1355 on the YouTube video. I'll put a little timestamp. Thank you so much, and hope you enjoy the rest of the episode. He was sent to basically be in charge of a comfort station.
Yikes.
Yes.
Big time yikes.
He has talked about this. He did not a memoir, but he did an essay in 1968. He talked about it. And I give him credit because he never once said, like, it
was fine what we did, yeah.
Fine, all that kind of stuff. Like, throughout the rest of his life, he was very critical of Japan's government and the army and all that kind of stuff, But he did follow orders. He made no bones about it. He was just like, look, that was what we were doing at the time. And he said that he tried to treat the women there with respect. If you don't know what a comfort station was, it's basically like a sort of
state section sexual violence against women.
Yeah, exactly.
Specifically women who are prisoners of war.
In China at the time.
In China at the time,
It was human trafficking. It's awful. Like, literally some really awful stuff.
It's really awful, and it's one of those things that the Japanese government, to this day, still continues to essentially refuse to more or less apologize for, or admit that they even did.
Again, like, Ishiro Honda was like, it happened, and it was horrible, and we should be ashamed of ourselves. Like he did say that. Like, he never said, like, it was fine, or he didn't ignore it. Like, he said it head on. He said that he tried to do his best to make it, like, okay, but, like, he listened to the women, tried to treat them like people, but you can't. It's dehumanizing, horrible, and he was very clear that he hated it and didn't want to do it, but he did follow orders. I mention this because I think it's important to understanding the film series, and the perspective that it was coming from. Like, Godzilla isn't simply about the trauma that Japan endured from foreigners. It's a lot of times about the trauma that it inflicted.
Yeah.
There are specific later films in, Godzilla canon that are like, hey, Japan, all of these horrible things you did are coming back to haunt you. And that comes from a very, I think, real perspective. Like, he was there. He knew about it. He did it. Like, he was there. And Honda was a pacifist. He was anti-war, anti-nuclear weapons, believer in human rights. He was very critical of the Japanese government for his entire life, But, he was a brilliant artist who, made dozens of movies in multiple genres. But he was also a war criminal who was never punished for the things that he most assuredly had to do.
Yeah.
And I think he, maybe more than anybody else, understood what made a monster. It's a horrible way to say this, but...
I would agree with that.
Yeah. I think that it is important to understand that Honda's message was never like, boo-hoo, Japan's sad, you know, like America's doing bad things to us or the rest of the world's doing bad things to us. And like, we, you know, his message was always, we are all doing this. That this is something that we are all taking part in. You know, none of us are innocent of this. And the future generations are going to be the ones who suffer for all the mistakes that we make.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to watch these movies through that context. It's going to get lighter from here on out. I promise. This is kind of the darkest it gets.
But that is something to, like, keep in mind, even in, like, the later funny ones.
Yeah.
That, like, it is still grounded in both the tragedy of the atomic weapons being used against Japan, but also Japan's horrific war crimes that they committed.
Yeah. It is a difficult, complicated thing. And I think that nobody understood that better than he did.
Yeah.
And I think he's a brilliant director. He is... You know, he's very good friends with Akira Kurosawa, and I think Akira Kurosawa maybe is like a better overall director. You know, he had like more
of an artistic eye,
but like Honda was good too.
Yeah.
He knew his stuff. He had a very particular style, and he was very outspoken as an artist. And they were good friends. They years and years they worked together, all that kind of stuff. I really do think that he is an important artist. He's a very good artist, but. We have to understand all this.
Yeah.
To be good human beings. And he's dead now. You know, it's like... I hate to say it, but it's easier to kind of have this, like, long take when he's just not around anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. After the war, he went back to PCL. And during the war, it actually changed its name to Toho.
Oh, hey.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Toho, film company that still exists to this day. That's what started as PCL... It's now Toho.
They've made a million of your favorite things.
Yes, you might not even know. We'll get there. He'd go back to being an assistant director, doing a number of projects, including working with Akira Kurosawa on a film called Stray Dog. Two of them would go on to be lifelong friends, work together on many projects. Honda was even supposed to be the director originally for Throne of Blood.
Oh, really?
Yes, but
interesting.
I forget why, but he dropped off and Kurosawa took over. One of my favorite Kurosawa films. We just saw it recently.
Yeah.
Really, really good. In 1951, he'd direct his first feature, The Blue Pearl, and then he'd direct two more in 1952. That was the film schedule they had back in those days. You would direct like 3 or 4 movies a year.
Yeah.
That was just kind of how it was.
This was a time when acting and directing and like movie making was treated a little bit more like a 9 to 5.
Yes.
Like you had to do this all the time in order to make a living from it.
Absolutely. One of the films he directed in 1952 was called The Man Who Came to Port, starring a young Toshiro Mifune.
Hey!
Yep. For Honda's fourth film, coming out in 1953, he'd direct a film about World War II called Eagle of the Pacific. It was an anti-war film. It was very critical of the Japanese military. Mifune was also in this. But more importantly, there was a special effects director named Eiji Tsuburaya.
Okay.
So Tsuburaya had actually been kicked out of Toho because of the propaganda films that he made during World War II. The Allies were like, hey, you got to get this guy out of here.
Yeah, we're not working with him.
But after a while, he was able to come back. He's sort of the, like, you know, in James Bond, we sort of talk about Ken Adam being the one who, like, really, like, the whole, like,
the look of the evil villain layer.
Yeah, the look of the evil villain layer, the look of spy movies and James Bond, and just sort of our idea of that comes from Ken Adam as like an art director. That's kind of him here, and not just for Godzilla movies. He was called the god of Tokukatsu. Tokukatsu is a general term for like special effects heavy film and TV in Japan. So like in America, like, you know, we call it just like special effects films or whatever, but like in Japan, like Power Rangers is Tokukatsu, you know, Ultraman's Tokukatsu, monster movies are Tokukatsu. It literally, I think it directly translates to just like special filming.
That, you know, horror movie house?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, almost certainly. It's anything that isn't like, and, you know, it's mostly associated with like, you know, fighting and monster movies and stuff like that, but it's really anything that's not just like a normal like drama or historical or anything like that.
Yes.
But he was called the god of Tokukatsu. He basically did like 250 films. Like he was just a special effects director who did so much amazing stuff. And he's also like really responsible for Godzilla as a concept. At this point, I also need to mention Tomoyuki Tanaka. Tanaka is a producer, and he had actually produced The Man Who Came to Port, as well as another Honda film called Farewell Rabal. And in the future, he would produce a bunch of Kurosawa films like Yojimbo and Senjuro and Redbeard. And in 1953, he was set to make a film called In the Shadow of Glory. This was going to be a war film. It was going to be filmed in a different country, and basically they didn't get their permits together. And so they had to cancel filming of that movie. Mm-hmm. And so he kind of was like, well, I need to make a movie. I need to come up with a new idea. In 1952, King Kong had been re-released in Japan.
Yeah.
And people loved that shit. They were way into it. And in 1950...
Understandable. It's rad.
It's rad, yes. And in 1953, an American film called The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms came out. And that was also a huge success.
Yeah.
So, like, monster movies were kind of the thing. Mm-hmm. And so he was like, we should make a Japanese monster movie. A monster movie from Japan. What a novel idea. The headlines of Japan at the time were being dominated by an event called the Daigo Fukuru Maru Incident. Essentially, 23 Japanese fishermen were contaminated by secret nuclear tests on Bikini Atoll.
Oops.
Yeah, leading to all of them getting radiation sickness and one of them even dying. All of these things kind of combine into an idea for like a new monster born of radiation.
Yes.
Tanaka first wanted the director to be this guy who was going to direct his canceled film. That guy declined, and so he asked Ishiro Honda, who was kind of still up and coming a little bit. Honda had actually shot a bunch of like documentary style films when he was coming up, and Tanaka really liked that idea. It's like, oh, you should film it like it's this real horrible devastation that's happening to a city.
Also a novel idea.
Exactly. Very much a novel idea, and I think this is a big part of Honda's style that works well, especially in this first one. He would lend the shots of like destruction in the wake of the monster like some realism and some like respect, and he wouldn't treat it like it was just like a big dumb joke. Tanaka then reached out to an author, Shigeru Kayama, to write a story, which Tanaka and another Toho writer named Takeo Murata would adapt into a screenplay. The name Godzilla is an anglicized version of Gojira.
Yes.
Gojira is the Japanese word. The name's origin is somewhat debated. The usual story is that it was created by Tanaka and was a nickname for an employee at Toho named Shiro Amakura. He was apparently like a really large man who liked to eat whale meat. And so they combined the words Gorira, which means gorilla, and Kujira, which means whale, into Gojira. But others have said that that's bullshit. I think Ishiro Honda's wife said that was bullshit. That didn't actually happen.
It's too cute a story.
It is kind of too cute a story. She said that they thought about the name very carefully and crafted something that sounded like a primal monster from the sea.
Yeah.
Which Gojira does
sound like that. Yes, yes, it does. And the Anglicized version of Godzilla, it's a monster the size of a god.
Yeah, god.
Like it's a lizard the size of a god, absolutely.
Yes. Godzilla himself was designed by a sculptor named Taizo Toshimitsu and art director Akira Watanabe, both also like very important, also sort of Ken Adam figures in their own right, especially Watanabe. He would be the art director for a lot of these. Tanaka originally wanted the design of the monster to fit the name, to be more like gorilla or whale-like, but Kayama's original idea of the monster in the first treatment was like a lizard-type monster.
Yes.
So they kind of stuck with that because that was what the Beast of 20,000 Fathoms was, so it was a similar kind of concept. The design they came up with was kind of dinosaur-like, elements of T-Rex, Stegosaurus, Iguanodon, kind of a couple of different things put together. And then Eiji Tsuburaya wanted the movie to be stop motion, you know, kind of like Harryhausen films or like King Kong, stuff like that. But that was going to be expensive and difficult, so they instead went with a suit. The original suit was made of thin bamboo sticks and wire with cotton lining and a wire mesh over it, and then coated in layers of latex and molten rubber elements. This thing was a nightmare to be in.
I bet. That sounds like it'd be really, really hot.
Yes. Naruo Nakajima, who is the actor who plays Godzilla for a long time, a real legend, like, absolutely.
Yes.
He was, like, the only guy who could do it. He had the endurance to do it. Everybody else, like, couldn't. And he said, like, the first time he put it on, he just fell over. He just couldn't, like, move around in it. It was really stiff. He could only be in it for, like, 2 or 3 minutes at a time before passing out, because it was just like I think they said it would get to be like 140 degrees in there.
Ew.
There would be like no air movement.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, and apparently the cotton lining would get like so much sweat that they had to replace it like every single day.
I bet.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Yeah, absolutely awful.
What a trooper, goddamn.
We'll talk about the special effects a little bit more later. The music was scored by Akira Ifukube, who was not only a composer, but he was also a forestry officer.
Hell yeah.
Interestingly. He actually got radiation sickness from doing experiments on wood for the Japanese military during World War II.
Okay.
Yeah, he, interesting guy. He did the music for the film without having seen the film. They showed him a couple of clips, and then they had a picture of Godzilla, and they were like, this is what you should write like the music about. And
that's an insane way to do that.
It is, and he did it in a week.
That's an insane thing to do.
Yeah, he did. He would also give one of the most iconic aspects of Godzilla, the roar.
Yeah.
He was trying to come up with a way to do that sound. And so what they did is they took a leather glove and they coated it in like violin rosin, and then they took a bass, like a string bass,
yeah,
and they detuned it, and then they got like a fancy microphone, and then they scraped the leather glove over it, and kind of like went like, you know, and then they passed that through like echo chambers and stuff like that to give it like a real big
empty hollow sound.
Yeah, exactly. Like he thought like it shouldn't sound like anything of this earth. It shouldn't sound like any other animal. It should sound like its own thing.
If you had told me they just had like one giant brass horn, like without any valves or stops or anything, and it's like one that was like, you know, the size of a room, and he stood at one end and just screamed at it, I would also believe you.
Yep. You know, fast forwarding a little bit, when he finally saw the movie, he was kind of impressed. He was like, wow, I didn't know what it was, but it actually ended up working out really well.
Oh, damn, I'm good at my job.
He said that he was just trying to make, like, music that felt big and important and, like, you know, frantic and, you know, people. The theme for the Japanese Defense Force, which has essentially become the, like, Godzilla theme music, the, like, dun 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 dun. He said that was perfect. He did it totally by accident.
Blind, more or less.
It ended up being perfect. In the lead up to the release of the film, Toho kind of realized that they had something here. Like, they were spending a lot of money. It was like one of their most expensive films ever, might have been the most expensive film ever that they had made to date. But like they knew that it was going to be big. They promoted the hell out of this. They did an 11-episode radio play over the summer leading up to its release, which for a long time was like lost, but I guess they've got it now. They banned the press from being able to go on the set and like take photos to kind of like raise the mystique a little bit, and then they mounted a Godzilla doll on a truck in Tokyo and then drove it around, and people were like, the hell's that thing? And it was their most expensive film to date, and they kind of needed it to be a success because they spent a lot of money on it. And so now we're gonna watch it and you're gonna tell me what you think, and whether or not it was a success.
I'm pretty excited for this.
I am too. It's been a while since I've actually seen it, and I'm sure it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
It's such a sunny day, such a sunny day, such a sunny day.
Back.
That movie slaps.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's no wonder they made 40 more fucking movies of that. It's so good.
Yeah. I'm very glad you think so. I'm very glad that you saw that and had the same reaction that I did when I saw that movie.
Okay. I have said multiple times on this podcast, so I hope you all know, I am a girl who loves sound stages and models.
Oh, yeah.
And goddamn was this movie chock full of thoughtfully made, highly detailed models.
Yes.
Like, it's not just someone, like, had a toy that they threw in a tub and then, like, threw a rock at it or whatever. Like, highly detailed Donovan said we're going to talk about this later. I cannot describe to you, like, there was a little model of a boat, and it was like kind of like a pleasure cruise thing.
Yeah.
And like someone had made a teeny tiny scale accurate string of flags to put around the outside, like down to that level of detail.
Yes.
Oh, it's so good.
It's legitimately, look, this movie birthed a generation of films, multiple generations of films and TV, like an industry, just culture. It's really hard to overstate, and it's a fucking great flick.
It really is.
There's like pathos and interesting characters with perspectives, and you get all of these things happening, and you get Yamane, who's sad that, like, they're like, oh, I don't want to kill Godzilla. I'm a scientist. I want to study him. And then, he sees the destruction. He's kind of like, maybe we gotta. And, Serizawa with the oxygen destroyer, he's like, look, this is a horrible, terrible weapon. I can't let it fall into the wrong hands.
Yeah, we could literally kill everyone on the planet with this.
Yeah, and having all of these things happen, I've seen a lot of monster movies over the years. Monster movies from this period and later. A lot of the character archetypes are here, but they're all more fully conceived and better, more human than a lot of those movies ever allow them to be. And the devastation and the destruction, it never feels like phony. It feels real. It feels really like devastating and powerful.
Miyazaki, there's that quote where he says, there's the Japanese concept of ma, which is like the silence between moments.
Yeah.
And like this movie's chock-a-block with that.
Tons of it. There's
like, you called it out as we were watching, but there was just that scene where like Ogata is like just sitting on the porch, and the kid is like looking through some papers because clearly he's about to study. The professor comes home and he sits down, and his daughter comes in because she's about to like pour him some beer or whatever.
Yeah,
and he's like pulled out a cigarette and he's just like tapping it, and like it's just this beautiful scene that you can see, and it feels like the end of a scene. It feels like the end. We're gonna cut to something else up. No, then Godzilla comes in.
Yeah, it's really amazing because the pacing of that scene kind of comes to a point where you think like, oh, now it's going to fade to black. This is kind of a tense preparatory moment, and it's going to go to the next thing in the movie, and then Godzilla attacks, and so all of those people now have to turn and go, wait, what? And their whole night, the time, it's all different.
All of their personal bullshit of like, I don't want to kill Godzilla, like, I want to marry you, I have to go ask your dad if we can get married, my family is dead.
Yeah.
Like, all of that doesn't matter because Godzilla is here, and he's gonna fucking wreck your shit.
Right now.
He's gonna burn your house to the ground, and then whoever's left alive is gonna get radiation poisoning.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how much of a plot synopsis we have to do for Godzilla.
No.
Basically, boats get attacked by Godzilla. Godzilla attacks an island. Everyone freaks out about a giant monster. He begins to encroach on Tokyo. All the scientists and politicians are arguing about what to do. More and more people die. Serizawa is a doctor. He's a scientist who has invented a new weapon of mass destruction. And he tells his girlfriend about it. Well, his fiance, who is gonna marry,
in love with someone else.
Yeah, she's in love with someone else. She's gonna marry another man. And Serizawa, he's like, I want to continue this research because I want to find a good use for it. But right now, it's just a weapon of mass destruction, and I can't live with myself. Mm-hmm. Even like, nuclear radiation, like you can do power plants with it. You can, cure cancer with it. There are positive uses for it.
Yeah.
But the oxygen destroyer doesn't have that.
Yeah, dynamite was originally invented for mining, to make mining easier, and then they're like, hey, what if we blew people up with it?
Exactly.
And the guy who invented dynamite was like, that sucks so hard, I'm going to create the Nobel Peace Prize about it.
Yes, I'm going to create the Me Peace Prize. And so, Serizawa then, he agrees after seeing the devastation to allow the oxygen destroyer to be used, but in doing so, he sacrifices himself because he knows that if he's left alive, he could recreate it. Someone could coerce him. Someone could figure out a way to force him to do it, and he refuses. He says, nope, I'm going to go down with this.
I fully understand that,
Yeah.
and I think that if I were in that impossible situation, there's the chance that I would make that same choice.
Yeah.
However, so here's my thing, is that nuclear power is something that is something that can be found in nature. It is something that can be discovered by studying the laws of nature. We were going to get there eventually.
Yeah,
if it wasn't the US in World War II, we were still going to get there eventually. And so now that the scientific community knows that this thing exists, the oxygen destroyer exists, they have a target to aim at.
Yeah, and they could, he burns his notes, but they could go into his lab, they could find traces that you're not really supposed to think about that.
Right, sure.
The point is the character. The point is the pathos. And
him also making the decision, like, hey, even if someone else figures out how to do this, I will not be part of it.
Yeah.
I would rather be dead than have a hand in spreading this even more.
I think also it is not stated, but I think he knows that Emiko doesn't love him anymore, that they're not going to get married. And so he's a little bit like, I don't really have anything here.
Yeah.
The research was my life. It's going away. Emiko, who was going to be my wife, she's not going to marry me, so I don't have anything.
She's not in love with me, and also apparently was never in love with me, because she tells Okata that she's always thought of him as like a big brother and a dear friend, but like she's never been in love with him.
Yeah, and obviously it was the 1950s and it's a monster movie. Like, Emiko is not like the most like complex of characters, but she is a person.
Yeah.
Like she has feelings and emotions and
she's allowed to have feelings.
Yeah.
No one ever slaps her when she's crying for being a dumb emotional woman.
Yeah, and no one ever like says anything like that. Nobody ever treats her.
She's not actually a grad student. She's just there taking notes for her dad because what else is she going to do?
Sure.
I don't think it's never said if she's actually in school or not.
Yeah.
She's just hanging out with her father, the paleontologist. But like, she's still allowed to be there. She still is taking notes for him.
Yeah.
And she still appears to be like, valuable to him as a research assistant.
Yeah. And there's scenes where they're in the, it's like a political like representate like a committee, and there's like women politicians there who are like arguing with the stuffy old conservative men. Like it.
Yeah, there's a scene where these stuffy old conservative men are like, I don't think we should do anything about it because it'll make the money sad. And she's like, you have to do something. It's the truth. The truth is out there that there's a giant lizard.
You have to let the public know. And the movie is very. It's not like really outwardly subversive, but it's very quietly subversive. There's a lot of social commentary, a lot of politics hidden in here, and that was Ishiro Honda. That was just how he was. Pretty outspoken guy. Like I find this movie to be so incredibly fascinating in so many ways. Like every time I watch it, there's new things that I didn't see last time,
Speaking of one of those things, there's a short little scene where there are a bunch of people on like what's clearly like a pleasure cruise. Like they're just out for the night, dancing and drinking while Godzilla is hanging out.
Yes.
And in the shot, there's a shot of a dance floor of a bunch of people like holding each other and like dancing to music. And there are two women who are holding each other and dancing. And it's one of those things of looking at it and like, here from my perspective in 2026, I want to say, like, hey, those two women are in love.
Yeah.
But I also desperately want to know what they would think about that. Like, was that just a friendship sort of thing?
Yeah.
Was it not uncommon for women to dance together like that because they were just close friends? Were those two quote-unquote close friends and also secretly in love?
Yeah.
What is that?
There's subtext there, and it's just a blink and you miss it kind of moment. You know? And that's
gorgeous, beautiful. I love it.
Yes, and that scene is more than anything, like it's part of the social commentary.
Yeah.
Ishiro Honda talked about, the thing that he really cared about with the movie was that, while all these big important things are happening, everybody's everybody's priorities are off. So like the regular people are just sort of like, oh geez, Godzilla, it's getting in the way of all the things I want to do. And then the business people are like, oh, Godzilla, he's losing us money. Nobody has the right perspective. Even Yamane, like he's a character that we like, and we kind of feel for him, but even he's like, oh, I want to study Godzilla, to the detriment, like just like people are dying, dude. Maybe studying Godzilla, yes, you're right, maybe we could learn some cool things from that, but hey, we need to kill it. It's killing people.
Yeah, from like the first time that it's like come up on land, 20 boats of people have already died.
Yeah.
20 boats of people have already died. And he's still like, no, they shouldn't kill it. We should study it. Hey, look, I'm not disagreeing that we should study this thing, but we should study this thing to figure out how to keep it the fuck away from land.
Yeah.
Like sharks and electrical pulses. There's got to be something.
we'll talk a little bit more about this movie. I'm going to just kind of go through a few of the actors.
Sure.
Just because I would love to. Haruo Nakajima as the Big G himself. He was originally hired as a stunt actor for samurai movies. He has a small part as a bandit in Seven Samurai.
Nice.
By the way, Seven Samurai, 1954.
Yeah.
Godzilla, 1954.
Yeah.
And that year, a Japanese film won Best Foreign Film at the Oscars, and it wasn't either of those films.
What was it?
It was Samurai. There's a trilogy called the Samurai Trilogy. I'll talk about it here in a minute, and one of those movies won it. So, like, 1954 was like a
banner fucking year for Japanese movies.
watershed moment for the Japanese film industry, which
Yeah.
was becoming huge at the time. Really fantastic. Anyway, Haruo Nakajima was an extra in a couple of scenes in the movie outside of the suit. He lost 20 pounds doing this movie.
Yeah, he probably sweated all of it out.
Sweated all of that shit out. And he would continue doing Godzilla for another 20 years after this. Like, just clap for this man. You need to applaud this man. That is an impossible job. And he does, like, he's in the suit. You kind of can't tell who he is or whatever. But he's moving and doing things that I can't imagine were either easy or, like, it comes across on the screen really well.
Yeah.
I think you absolutely have to give him credit for doing a great job.
Highly agree.
Yeah. So, the three leads in this movie, so Ogata, Imiko, and Dr. Serizawa, those are three young actors who were all hired by Toho at the same time. Mm-hmm. So Toho had this thing back in those days called the New Face Program, where every year they would get a bunch of, like, young people from around Japan and kind of, like, hire them on as, like, these are our new, like, stars of our studio.
Yeah.
And they all three were in the same year of the New Face Program.
Wild.
Yeah. Ogata is played by Akira Takarada. This was only his third film ever. Both of his previous films were released the same year. Mm-hmm. He got hired by Toho, and he'd go on to be in several other Godzilla films over the years, as well as a bunch of other stuff, Momoko Kochi as Imiko. She got the job through that New Face Program. She kind of got, like, stuck in monster movies for a while. She would do some of the other Toho monster movies. Mm-hmm. And in 1958, she'd actually leave Toho to, like, formally study acting and be like a serious actor.
Sure.
She continued acting for the rest of her life, doing, like, stage productions, all that kind of stuff.
Good for her.
Yeah. Fun fact, she was a descendant of the Matsudaira clan, which is where Shogun Tokugawa Ieyasu came from.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's a kind of a fun historical little footnote there. Serizawa was played by Akihiko Hirata. At the same time as he was doing Godzilla, he was also filming a trilogy of films with director Hiroshi Inagaki called the Samurai Trilogy.
Yeah.
The first of which won an Academy Award for Best Foreign Film. Back in those days, they didn't have a Best Foreign Film every year. They just occasionally would give out a Best Foreign Film that they thought was good enough.
Oh, yeah. It wasn't like it was in a category. It was like, hey, you did a really good job.
Yeah, exactly. And a couple of Japanese films had already won it. Mm-hmm. And just 1954, the fact that Seven Samurai and Godzilla came out and neither of them were the ones that won it is wild to me. But apparently the Samurai Trilogy is also a great trilogy. I've never seen it, but apparently it's still really good.
Gonna be really good to beat Seven Samurai.
I mean, it must, yeah. He'd go on to do a bunch more monster movies, usually as a doctor. Like, he's not Serizawa, but he's in a bunch of other monster movies as like,
a doctor?
the doctor, or the scientist or whatever. Yeah. Takashi Shimura as Dr. Yamane. I mean, what can we say about this guy? He's in so much stuff.
Love him.
Yeah.
So much. He's got such a good face, and he's so good at expressing emotions on his very good face.
Yeah.
Holy shit, what an amazing actor.
Yeah.
Jesus Christmas.
He was in tons of Kurosawa films.
Yeah.
He was in Rashomon. He was in Seven Samurai this exact same year. He was in Throne of Blood, Yojimbo, Ikira. Like, oh my God. He was nominated for Best Foreign Actor in the BAFTA Awards twice. And he's just in my opinion, one of the greatest actors of all time.
It's so good.
Really, really good. I love this guy. We'll see more of him. He's actually in the next Godzilla movie.
Huzzah.
Yeah. Speaking of people who are in Seven Samurai, the old fisherman guy at the very beginning, that's Kuninoriya Kodo. He was the village elder in that movie.
Yeah.
He's also one of the generals in Throne of Blood, like one of the old generals
Oh,
that's kind of
yeah,
sitting
yeah.
around. He's also in the next movie. He basically just like keeps popping up as like old man in some of these movies.
I just gotta also say really quickly, there's just like a shot at the very beginning of the fishing village, and when the old guy in the fishing village is talking, there are like a couple of other very old people behind him, and like you just don't get old faces like that in movies anymore.
No, you don't.
Like everybody has to be like, you can be old, but you still have to be pretty.
Yeah.
Like there's a woman behind him who her face was entirely made out of wrinkles, and she was gorgeous.
Yeah.
It was wonderful to see an actual human face.
And also, like, you know, Kodo, he's like missing teeth. Like,
Yeah.
he's like really like crazy looking. Yeah, you don't see that kind of thing in certainly Western, but I bet you also not in Japan either anymore. There's also a bunch of actors who are in small roles, and we'll talk about a bunch of them in later movies, because a lot of the actors who are in small roles in this movie are in bigger roles later on, and vice versa, like, because it was Toho, and you were
Yeah, they had like a stable, basically.
Exactly. You were working in like 3 or 4 movies, so, you know, all of these...
It was your day job.
It was your day job, exactly. The film was a huge success. There's really no way to kind of like quantify it in a way that makes sense nowadays. They sold 33,000 tickets on the first day.
Wow.
Which in 1954 was unheard of.
Yeah.
They did so well that the Toho CEO called Ishiro Honda's house to congratulate him.
Wow.
Ishiro Honda's wife was like, that shit didn't happen. Super well. It was a national phenomenon, but reviews were kind of mixed.
I did sort of see that.
I don't think people at the time really knew what it was.
Sure.
You know, these kinds of movies were in general not very well respected. They were popular, but they weren't really well respected. And people at the time, especially in Japan, kind of saw it somewhat as like exploitative, like, you know, there's all this dying and stuff, and they were just like, hey man, we just had these atomic bombs. Like, now looking back, it's like, wow, you know, the trauma really informed the nation and how they felt about it. But, you know, I could imagine if somebody in, you know, 2005 made a movie about a monster attacking New York, you know, and like just saw like a bunch of stuff and people were crying.
A giant dust monster attacking New York,
like jumping off of like buildings and stuff. I think people would be upset.
Yeah.
So I get it. Like, I really do. But there were some people at the time who did really like it. You know, it was not a ton at first, but like over like a short period of time, it started to kind of build some prestige. People were like, wow, this is like a really good thing. And the film started to kind of do well overseas, and people started to change their minds. And even the people who at first were a little skeptical started to kind of respect it more and more. Figures on box office are kind of hard to pin down, but the original release made millions. Like, and the movie was, you know, it cost some millions of yen, which is some hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
You know, we could go with inflation and stuff, but like, just the film on its own, original release, made millions of dollars, not to mention everything that came after.
Yes.
Speaking of...
birthed the whole franchise.
Yeah. There were multiple Japanese versions with subtitles that were released around the world. The original version played in the U.S. in theaters that catered to Japanese immigrants.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like when it first came out. Mm-hmm. But in 1956, an American version of the film was produced by Jewel Enterprises called Godzilla, King of the Monsters.
Yeah.
They wanted this film to resonate with American audiences, so they changed a lot. They cut a lot of stuff out. They edited things, and they also cast some American actors, and specifically Raymond Burr of Rear Window and Perry Mason fame.
Jesus.
And he would star in it. They hired other actors, several Asian American actors, play extras in certain scenes. Actually, one of the minor American actors is a guy named Mikael Conrad, who's from Columbus, Ohio.
Hey.
The English lines dubbed for the movie were recorded by 2 Asian American actors. One was Sammy Tong, a TV comedy actor who had been in small parts in films over the years, probably best known for a recurring role on a popular sitcom from the late 50s, early 60s called Bachelor Father.
Okay.
I've never seen it, don't know anything about it.
Oh, yeah. I for sure thought you were about to say, like, Love Boat or something.
No.
Chips.
The other Asian American actor who did some of the voice dubbing was James Hong.
Uh-huh.
You know, from literally everything, everywhere, all at once.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who has, Lopan and fucking Big Trouble in Little China. Hang on. I need to just read a list of things that James Hong's been in. Kung Fu Panda, Mulan, also in Perry Mason, Charlie Chan, Man from U.N.C.L.E., Bonanza, Hawaii Five-0, Kung Fu. He's the maitre d' in the Chinese restaurant episode of Seinfeld. He's in Chinatown. He's in Airplane. He's in Wayne's World. He's in Balls of Fury. He's great in Balls of Fury. Just like...
If you were picturing, like, a sort of slight older East Asian man, you're probably picturing James Hong.
Yeah, and he's just been doing everything forever. And he's still around. He's still doing stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah.
The man is 112 and still acting.
He and Sammy Tong actually were doing, like, a comedy thing at the time together, and that's how the two of them kind of worked together on this movie. One of the most prolific actors in history. If you don't know who James Hong is, look him up.
You're going to look at his face and you're going to be like, oh, I know that guy.
Yeah, you immediately know who that is. This version of the film, Godzilla King of the Monsters, it's not a dub. It's not just a slight recut. It's like an entirely different film.
Oh, yeah?
It's got new scenes that were filmed. It's got recut and edited scenes from the original. Editor Terry O'Morse was actually given a co-credit as like co-director with Ishiro Honda for this new version. How do I put this? It is not as good as the original.
So, like, I have heard that they recut it for American audiences and added a bunch of shit and kind of made it worse.
Okay. I am going to first tell you the problems that I have with it.
Sure.
And then I am going to defend it. They removed a lot of the anti-nuclear message. They removed a lot of the, like, more political, like, subversive kind of stuff in it because, of course, they did. There's no two ways about it. And it's not a Japanese perspective that the movie is giving. It is an American perspective on events happening in Japan.
Yeah.
That all being said, this is 1954 or 1956 when the movie comes out. There were not movies where Japanese people were not the bad guys coming out in the mid-50s.
Yeah.
There were not movies where we were treating the death and suffering of any East Asian people, let alone Japanese people, with any kind of respect or reverence, the way that this film did.
Yeah.
Raymond Burr, he's an American actor. He's got an American perspective. He's a reporter. He goes to Japan and sees these horrible things happening, and he treats them with the respect that they deserve. He's like, this is horrible. This is terrible. I've got to tell people about this. And, I think it works. If on its own, it kind of doesn't work, but sort of as a companion film to the original. You watch the original, and then you watch King of the Monsters. It sort of works as like these are the same events from a slightly different perspective.
Yeah.
And that's the version of the film that became the big international success. The original Japanese version obviously was popular. It played in a lot of places. It did really well. But like when anyone else in any other part of the world that wasn't like East Asia was going to see Godzilla, they were seeing the American version. And it also has its own really good special effects tricks. Like there's lots of scenes where like, they superimpose like Burr into the scene, and there's scenes where like characters who weren't in the original but are in the recut are sort of like shown from behind, so you can kind of like oh, maybe that's that guy from that scene. It's stuff like that.
Yeah,
it's some neat, tricky film work that I think, as somebody who just enjoys film, I think it's very fun. I get it. Like, it's not as good. It doesn't really work on its own, but I do think it's valuable as part of it, and I think that people who just kind of throw it out as being like, the crappy Americanized version aren't really giving it its due. And also, Raymond Burr is great. Let me just also say that Raymond Burr is fucking excellent in the film, because he's basically just standing there describing things happening, but he's so good at it. He's got a great voice. He's, God, I love Raymond Burr.
I was gonna say, I think that the only way that you could like take away the gravitas of like the destruction and loss of human life is if you just straight up slapped a laugh track over like all of the dead bodies. But like, because that is so deeply baked into the original cut of the movie.
Yeah. most of the later Godzilla films will have an American version that's slightly different. We'll talk about them as we go, but they don't really stand on their own the way that this one does. They're basically just recuts, and some of them do some hack jobs. We'll talk about Gigantus the Fire Monster next time.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. It made $2 million in the US, and it made many more over the whole world. And the combination of those two films being the huge successes that they were kind of made Godzilla a household name.
Yeah.
And retroactively, at the time reviews were kind of mixed on both the American and the Japanese version. Retroactively, the film's a masterpiece. I'm always really annoyed when people kind of look back and go, oh, well, it was just kind of a cheap, crummy monster movie. It's just
a guy in a big rubber suit.
It's actually something that pisses me. Roger Ebert, when they re-released the original in 2004 for the 50th anniversary, Roger Ebert was like, it's actually kind of a terrible film, but it's important. And I'm like, go fuck yourself, Roger Ebert. Go absolutely fuck yourself. This movie rules.
Eat a whole bag of dicks.
Yeah. But, however you feel about it, its importance cannot be overstated. It
birthed a genre.
More than a genre. It birthed 35 goddamn live-action films. It birthed a bunch of animated films, TV shows, cartoons, comic books, novels, toys, games, theme parks, creepypastas, analog horror series. The list goes on.
It is wild how much stuff I have absorbed through cultural osmosis as being part of Godzilla stuff, but how little of it was actually in this specific movie.
Yeah.
The idea of the Japanese businessman pointing and shouting, "It's Godzilla, run," does not happen here.
No, it doesn't.
But it's such ingrained in my idea of what Godzilla is. There are moments that are like that.
Yeah.
As oh my god, the first time that you see Godzilla out of the water, it's just this tiny fishing village, and everybody there's a bunch of people who have died at sea. They get one guy back, and then there's a storm, and Godzilla comes ashore, and a bunch of people die in the storm, and also because their houses got squished by Godzilla. And the next day, they're all freaking out because there's a giant footstep in the middle of town.
Yeah.
And someone's like, oh my god, it's over on the other side of the hill. So they all run up the hill, and then fucking Godzilla's head comes up over the hill, and the first time you see it, it's that's a monster the size of an entire fucking mountain. It's gigantic. What can you do in the face of this giant monster?
We didn't talk about the special effects as much as but we should talk about it now.
Yeah.
Tsuburaya, he's a genius. Apparently they shot the regular scenes for 52 days, which is a totally normal film cycle. They shot just the special effects scene for over 70 days.
Jeez.
They shot those for longer, and then they also did another couple of weeks of all the composition shots where there's special and regular film that they had to kind of work together. The second unit, which did a lot of special effects, kind of was on its own. It was sort of working separately, and just the amount of effort. They just had this soundstage with all of these lovingly crafted miniatures and buildings and stuff. I mentioned that Nakajima, when he was filming, he was really worried because, he's in the suit. He can't see very well. He's overheating. He's worried he's going to pass out. And the whole time he's thinking well, I need to step on the exact right places because if I screw this up, it's more than my salary. It's thousands and thousands of dollars to reset these shots and have people hand paint these signs and hand set up everything, so I need to do this right. And it was wild what they were able to accomplish.
There were a lot of shots of Godzilla destroying buildings, and you can see that there are tiny human figures in them. And then there's one really great composite shot of you're looking up Dutch angle at a building, and there are a bunch of people moving around in that building, and Godzilla's face is coming over the building, and he squashes the building.
Yeah.
And it you can see all of those people, and you're just thinking, oh my god, they're all gonna die, and there's literally nothing that anybody can do about that.
So many great shots.
Holy shit, that moment, after the big night of destruction, huge swaths of Tokyo have burnt to the ground, and a bunch of people are dead, and then they're organizing relief efforts, they're pulling survivors out, they're doing triage, all of this kind of stuff. There's just this shot of this baby, this kid is 4 years old max, probably like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
There's just this shot where this doctor is like holding this Geiger counter over this child, and he looks at the dial and he looks at Emiko and he just shakes his head and walks away.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing you can do for that kid. It's gonna die of radiation poisoning.
Yeah. Yeah, the scene, I mean, the scene when Godzilla is going through Tokyo and he's burning everything alive, and the mother is holding her 3 children in her arms, and she says, "We're gonna go see Daddy soon," is like, I'm sorry, I'm crying right now.
It's
like
gut-wrenching.
It's gut-wrenching, and it doesn't come off as phony or fake or like sometimes you see those kinds of things in monster movies and you laugh because they're so ridiculous or over the top.
Yeah.
You do not in this movie. That is a gut punch. You feel awful.
There is a very fine line between like overworked soap opera-y and like hokey, and like they just absolutely thread that needle and fucking nail it.
Yeah. Can I also say this? Again, we're talking special effects. I still think that the Godzilla suit looks great.
Yeah.
There is no angle of that suit where it looks like a guy in a rubber suit.
No.
It looks like a monster. Obviously, he's kind of weird and stilted, but like it looks like a monster. The face looks scary. The like the arms, like everything. It works super, super well. And you know, like the hand puppet version of Godzilla that you see a couple of times. And there's a couple of angles where it looks a little goofy. You know, you see it like straight on, the jaw isn't like quite aligned because you can tell it's kind of a, you know, and the teeth are a little weird and like the proportions are different from the way it is in the actual suit. Mm-hmm. But the suit looks so good.
Godzilla's got a little bit of like the eagle and falcon problem where like when you see it from in the profile, like that's so scary, that's so majestic, that looks so cool, and then you see it front on and it's just kind of like, yeah, okay,
look, and here's what I'm gonna say. One of the things that we're gonna do as we go through this series is I'm gonna talk about how Godzilla looked in each of these movies. He looks dumb in a lot of these movies. Let me just be very clear about this. Like, I think Godzilla is amazing and awesome and cool, but like a lot of the Showa era in particular, which is this like first era of Godzilla, Godzilla looks dumb as hell. He looks stupid. He looks like a weird fucking like puppet frog man, and he's not scary at all. This movie, he's fucking scary.
That's the other thing is that like okay, in some of the newer movies, like, it's not like okay, like the Aaron Taylor Johnson movie or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not like anybody in that movie like had a connection with Godzilla and like could communicate in any way, shape, or form. They did kind of do that with like King Kong and that little girl whose actress unfortunately died recently.
Yeah.
But like they didn't really do that, but they kind of like Aaron Taylor Johnson sort of had an understanding of what Godzilla is and what Godzilla is doing and like how to protect people from this monster. That's not here. No one understands a goddamn thing about this giant monster. No one knows what it wants, why it's here, where it came from, what it can do, and where it's going to go or how long it's going to be here and how many people it's going to kill. It is a mobile force of nature that is only here to bring destruction.
Man.
That roar was so good. The atomic breath looked a little bit like a hokey, but like, you know,
it was an effect.
It was an effect. Yeah.
I love how,
but I loved the back spines.
Yeah,
like,
the spines lighting up is very cool. Yeah, Ifukube, the scream, like the roar, the music. What a great job. There's a lot of silence in the film. We talked about that a little bit, and it works really well. So when there's music, when there's sound, it hits in a really interesting way. What a great movie. If you haven't seen it, you have to.
It's currently on HBO if you've got it.
Points gun, I just want to talk. It's on HBO Max for free. It's on the Criterion Collection for free. You can find it in a bunch of places. Buy physical media, buy a DVD, buy a Blu-ray, whatever the fuck you want to do. Pirate it. I don't care. Go see this fucking movie. It's important. It really is. And honestly, I also recommend seeing King of the Monsters, which is the American version. I think it has value. It's not quite as good, but I also think that that's worth it. Any final thoughts?
I don't know how they're going to top this.
They're not.
No.
Yeah. Sorry to say this. Unlike James Bond, where it kind of had... Well, okay. James Bond has peaks and valleys where it gets better and worse and better and worse and better and worse. Godzilla just kind of gets worse for 20 years, and then... there are some good ones later on. but in between there are some fun bad ones.
Sure.
So we'll talk about that. Next time, we're going to talk about the next 2 Godzilla films. We're only going to watch one of them, but we're going to talk about the next 2, which are Godzilla Raids Again, and of course, King Kong versus Godzilla, the original one.
Ooh.
Yeah. And then we'll also talk about some other stuff that Toho was doing at the time to kind of get us into the next couple of movies. But for now, we're going to sign off here. Mm-hmm. I'm Donovan.
I'm Hannah.
And go listen to Brain Stew. Go listen to that Brain Stew with Godzilla, you know? I don't know. Don't do it. Go see the fucking movie.
Go watch Godzilla.
Go watch Godzilla. Jeez. Thanks for listening. You can find us at mythingyourthing.com or at mythingyourthingpod on social media. Thanks to RK Maroon for letting us use their song Macaroni Art from the EP You Can't Eat Horses. You can get it at rkmaroon.bandcamp.com. If you have a thing you think we should talk about, email us at mythingyourthingpod@gmail.com, and maybe that could be our thing.